Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another ride and another life lesson. Glad that you're with me today. It is a glorious, beautiful, absolutely beautiful day today. I checked the temperature before I left the house, and it registered 71. Can you believe that? Here in February, 71 degrees. It just absolutely beautiful. You can tell I've got my jacket on. Didn't need my heated jacket today, but decided to wear a jacket because when you get rolling, even though it's like 71 degrees, it's kind of chilly. It's not t-shirt kind of weather, but it's just a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous day. Well, thanks again for riding with me. I'm glad that you've come along today, and we're gonna talk about something that I think applies to everybody, and that is trusting the process and knowing that God's plans are greater than our plans. Have you ever thought about the fact that there's a lot of things that happen that you just simply don't understand? I mean, you just simply don't understand it. I know that's happened in my life. There's a lot of things that have happened and that happen currently that I'm wondering, God, what in the world are you doing? What are you doing? I don't understand this. I don't get it. It's not lining up with what I thought. And then we have to come to the realization, or at least I do, have to come to the realization that God's plans are greater and higher than our plans. So Jeremiah chapter 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and to give you a hope and a future." I want you to think about those words, to give you a hope and a future. I know the plans I have for you. Now, I'm not talking about, like some of us, calendar out things. We live by our calendar. I do. That's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. We are responsible for our day-to-day planning and day-to-day activity. What I'm talking about is when you and I answer or ask the question, God, what in the world are you doing? I don't understand your plan for me. I think that's one of the biggest questions, most often put questions that people have for me is, what is God's plan for me? And I guess my first response is, I don't know what God's plan is for you, okay? Because God's plan for you may be totally different than God's plan for me. Now, we can't say, the Bible teaches that God would that none should perish, right? That He wants all of us to be saved. He wants all of us to be, with Him in heaven. I get that. But there are a lot of times where, we ask the question, God, what in the world are you doing? I simply don't understand it. And so that, this is going to be like a two-part series this week and next week because I think this topic is so important, and I think it's so often misunderstood by people. So, again, for I know the plans I have for you. Now, God is writing through Jeremiah. God is speaking to a people who were in captivity in Babylon. That's the historical background. And He had promised them, He had told them, you're going to be in captivity for 70 years. And at the end of the 70 years, I'll deliver you, and you'll be able to go back to your homeland. Now, I want you to think about that. 70 years is a long time. Okay, what is a generation? 10 years, I think? So that's seven generations that come and go. So God is saying, I have plans for you. I've not forgotten about you. I have plans not to, to prosper you. Now, we often think prosperity there. We often think a lot about, financially. It could be, but that's really not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is, and I think the operative thing there is, I don't want to harm you. It may seem like what you're going through now, it may seem like I'm harming you, but that's not what my actions are intending. Okay? So the first thing here, so I'm going to talk about 3 this week and then 4 next week. So first of all, understand that based on Jeremiah 29:11, that God's plans are bigger than our present circumstances. Let that sink in for a minute. God's plans are bigger than our present circumstances. So you're going through a thing, right? Whatever the thing is, you're going through it. All right? And you're wondering, is there ever going to be an end to this? The answer to that is yes, there will be. But more importantly, the question is, what's God trying to teach me in the circumstance that I'm in? Now, we have to admit, openly admit, sometimes we bring those circumstances on ourselves, right? Decisions that we make, things that we do that we shouldn't be doing, things that we say that we shouldn't have said, relationships that we've gotten into that we shouldn't have gotten into, those kinds of things. So sometimes we bring that on ourselves. But God is writing to a people here who are in captivity, and he says, despite your circumstances, despite your present circumstances, I want you to trust me. That's why he says, I have plans for you. I don't want to harm you. I'm not seeking to harm you. I'm not seeking to hurt you. But there are some things that you need to learn. And sometimes those lessons learned, hence the name of this podcast, Life Lessons, are sometimes hard lessons to learn. They just are. So God's plans are bigger than our present circumstance. So think about your present circumstance. It may be something you're going through in your marriage or in a relationship, a friendship, something maybe related to your job, something maybe related to your children, even if your children are adults. Just pick something. Understand that God's plans for you are bigger, grander, more significant than your present circumstance. Okay? Number 2, not only is his plans bigger than our present circumstance, but, and this is a huge one, right? We need to trust God's timing. We need to trust God's timing. That's so important. Timing is everything. So it's often said that God's timing is perfect. Okay, there's an old gospel song that says that God's in time, on time, every time. He's in time, on time, every time. Now, He's not beholden to our time schedule, okay? He's not beholden to that. He doesn't have to answer to us. Okay? I think I'm going to go straight here. So, the delays, you're praying, let's say you're praying for something, and you've been praying for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it just doesn't seem to be clicking, right? It just doesn't seem to be. And so you wonder, okay, has God forgotten about me? God promises that He'll hear our prayers, but man, it doesn't seem like He's hearing mine. What's going on here? Okay. So the delays and the detours sometimes are meant to strengthen or to stretch our patience and our faith in Him. See, God is looking to develop you and I. And it's a lifelong process. That's why the title of this is Trusting the Process. You know, God's plans are greater than ours. Trusting the process. It's kind of like, you know, when you're building something, right? There's plans. And if you short circuit those plans, it's whatever you're building is going to end up in a disaster. Okay? So there are certain things, and it may be, and I want you to think about this for a second, it may be that God has to put something in place over here before He can answer your prayer. He's in the process of answering it, but it takes time. And that time, and I'll be honest, I am just my temperament. I'm an impatient person. Okay? I don't like to wait. I mean, I just don't like to wait. And so when I'm praying about something or praying for something and the answer doesn't come immediately, see, I think a lot of this is just me now, I think a lot of this timing stuff and impatience comes from just our overall culture. We've, you know, most of us have been brought up with instantaneous stuff. You know, our food, you know, what we cook for supper can be instantaneous. We go to a restaurant and, you know, within 10 minutes, you know, the food's cooked and we're ready to eat it. We go to a fast food restaurant, drive through the drive-through, and within, you know, 3 or 4 minutes, boom, we have a microwave and we put the food in there and boom, it's done. Okay? And so we've kind of become accustomed to not having to wait. So when God puts us in a position, and remember, I have plans for you. I know the plans I have for you. Notice how I repeated that? I know the plans I have for you. And so, God is not limited by time or space, right? He knows past, present, and future all at once. All you and I know is this moment, this time. We can't even predict an hour from now, where He knows. So there are some things that maybe we want, that we're desiring, and God is saying, nah, that's not really good for you. That's not good for you. You shouldn't do that. I'm not going to give you that because here's what's going to happen down the line. And so God's timing is perfect timing. He knows exactly what we need, and He knows exactly when we need it. And that applies to every area of life. Every area of life. Okay? Number 3. So we've got God's plans are bigger than our immediate circumstances. Trusting in God's timing is essential. And then number 3 for today, the journey is as important as the destination. Okay, so when you and I get in our vehicles or like on a motorcycle, we've got from point A to point B, we've got that planned out. It's all mapped out. We know exactly what we're going to do. When you plan a vacation, what do? You get out a map and you Google it and you figure out, okay, how many miles is it and how long is it going to take to get there? By the way, just as a little aside, when you Google something like Google Maps or whatever, and you're looking at a destination, and it says that in a car it's going to get you, it's going to take you 5 hours, you can allow about 6 or 6.5 hours on a motorcycle. Why is that? Because a tank of gas only holds about 150 miles worth of gas. If you're traveling the interstate, probably 125 miles. So, do the math on that. How many times you're going to have to pull over, stop, and fuel up, and get a drink, and all that kind of stuff. Okay? So the journey is as important as the destination. God is not so much, now I'm talking about in this life. I'm not talking about in terms of heaven and us going to heaven. So don't get this mixed up. God is not concerned about where we're going to be in 5 years, or in a year, or in a month. He's concerned about what we learn in the process. Do we learn to trust Him? Do we learn to rely upon Him? Remember, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not harm you, to give you a hope and a future, to give you a hope and a future. So the journey is as important as the destination. So he wants to, during that journey, whatever journey you're on, He's wanting to shape and mold and fashion you. There's a passage also in Jeremiah where Jeremiah is shown this vision of the potter, not a vision, but he goes down to the potter's house and he observes the potter working a piece of clay on the potter's wheel. And there's a whole lesson about that. So the destination, it's about the journey to get to that. What do we learn? What do we learn about? Remember my 3 questions? I shared this several podcasts ago. Remember my three questions? God, what are you trying to teach me about me? What are you trying to teach me about you? And what are you trying to teach me about me and you in relationship to each other? Always ask those questions. And sometimes it's not as simple as sitting down one evening and, having the Bible open and, praying okay, God, show me, what are you trying to teach me about me? Sometimes that takes a little bit of time to do that, okay? So, the process of getting to the destination is what's important. Are we learning anything? Are we developing in our faith? Are we developing in our patience? Are we developing in our trust and reliance upon Him? Over and over and over again in the Old Testament, we see examples of the children of Israel in their history. Times when they would be listening to God and obeying Him and trusting Him, and then times when they would just take things on their own, okay, and do things on their own. Every time they would do things on their own, they'd get into some kind of trouble, okay, and there'd be discipline for that. God is simply teaching us to trust Him. For I know the plans I have for you. So here's the question for you today. Have you discovered what God's plan is for you? It may just be as easy and as simple as something as trusting Him, relying upon Him, learning about Him, developing a relationship with Him. What about your journey? What about that? What's your journey like right now? Is it one that's rough and full of detours, full of potholes, full of, whatever? What is your journey like? And then third, are you trusting in God's timing? Are you trying to do things on your own? Have you become so impatient with, listening for an answer from God? You become so impatient that you're striking out and doing things on your own. And hey, you and I can do that. We can do that. God's not going to stop us from doing that, but there's a price to pay for doing that. So God's plans are greater than our plans. And this is about trusting the process of growing and maturing and developing into the person that God wants us to be. Okay? I want to thank you for tuning in today and going along on a ride with me. It's just a glorious, beautiful, beautiful day here in February. And we'll pick this back up next week as we talk about part 2 of trusting the process, God's plan for you and I. It's greater than what we can even imagine. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for riding with me. I'll see you either on the bike or in my studio, one way or another. We'll meet up again next Thursday. Thanks a lot. God bless you. Have a great day.